The Harmony station drifted through the void like a gleaming jewel against the star-studded darkness, its rotating rings generating the artificial gravity that kept dozens of species comfortable in their shared workspace. Dr. Kai Nakamura pressed, his palm against the cool observation window, watching the distant nebula paint the cosmos in shades of purple and gold. 3 months into his assignment as lead xenobiologist, he still found himself amazed by the sheer diversity of life that called this diplomatic outpost home. Dr. Nakamura? The voice behind him was like liquid music, each syllable flowing with an otherworldly cadence that made his pulse quicken despite himself. He turned, already knowing who he'd find. Vesa stood in the doorway of the environmental lab, her tall, willowy frame backlit by the soft blue glow of the corridor lighting. She was Luminari, one of the most graceful species he'd ever encountered. Her skin held an inner luminescence that shifted subtly with her emotions, currently displaying soft silver patterns that reminded him of moonlight on water. Her features were delicate yet strong, with large expressive eyes that seemed to hold depths of ancient wisdom. "Please, just call me Kai," he said, hoping his voice sounded more professional than he felt. "You needed something?" "The environmental controls in Section C are fluctuating again," she replied, stepping into the lab with that fluid grace that characterized her people. "I believe we'll need to work together to recalibrate the atmospheric processors. Your expertise with biological systems combined with my engineering knowledge should solve the problem." Kai nodded, trying not to stare as she moved to the workstation. The way she carried herself was mesmerizing, each movement purposeful yet elegant, like a dancer performing an intricate routine. Her hands, with their long, tapered fingers, moved over the control panels with practiced precision. Over the past few weeks, they'd collaborated on several projects. Each interaction left him more intrigued, more drawn to her quiet intelligence and gentle humor. She had a way of explaining complex engineering concepts that made them seem like poetry, and her laugh, rare but musical, had become something he found himself trying to coax out whenever possible. "The habitat modules are particularly sensitive," Vesa continued, her luminescent patterns shifting to a warmer gold as she concentrated. "The Andromedan delegates require very specific humidity levels, and the Rigelian plants won't survive if the oxygen mixture varies by more than 0.02%. "I've been monitoring the bio-readings," Kai said, moving to stand beside her at the console. This close, he could detect her subtle scent, something like ozone and jasmine, distinctly alien yet somehow comforting. "The symbiotic relationships between species are more complex than we initially calculated. Some of the atmospheric requirements overlap in unexpected ways." As they worked, Kai found himself stealing glances at her profile, admiring the way the station's lighting played across her features. There was something magnetic about her presence, and quality that went beyond mere physical beauty. She possessed an otherworldly serenity that drew him in, making him want to understand not just her species' biology, but her thoughts, her dreams, her world. "The repair work will require us to access the panels in the observation deck," Vesa said, pulling up a schematic on the holographic display. "It's usually quiet there during the day cycle. We shouldn't be disturbed." "That sounds perfect," Kai replied, then immediately worried he'd sounded too eager. He was a professional, damn it. He'd worked with dozens of alien species without this kind of distraction. But something about Vesa was different. Something about her made him forget his usual composed demeanor. As they gathered their tools and headed toward the observation deck, Kai couldn't shake the feeling that this repair job would be different from their previous collaborations. The thought both thrilled and terrified him. The universe suddenly felt much smaller and infinitely more complicated. The observation deck was bathed in the soft amber glow of the nearby star system, its massive viewport offering an unobstructed view of the cosmos beyond. Kai and Vesa worked in comfortable silence, their tools spread across the maintenance access panel that controlled the atmospheric processors for this section of the station. "Hand me the quantum calibrator," Vesa said softly, her voice barely above a whisper in the hushed space. Kai reached for the device, but found himself pausing as she leaned forward to examine a particularly stubborn coupling. The light from the stars caught her profile perfectly, highlighting the elegant curve of her neck and the way her luminescent skin patterns pulsed gently with her heartbeat. The silver tracery across her shoulders seemed to flow like liquid starlight, and he found himself completely mesmerized by the graceful way she moved. She was beautiful, not in any human sense, but in a way that transcended species, that spoke to something deeper than mere physical attraction. There was an otherworldly poetry to her form, a harmony of movement and light that made his breath catch in his throat. He didn't realize he was staring until she spoke again. "Kai?" She hadn't moved, but there was something different in her tone. "The calibrator? Sorry, He fumbled for the tool, his cheeks burning with embarrassment. But as he extended it toward her, she slowly turned to face him. Their eyes met, and Kai felt his heart stop. He'd been caught, completely and utterly. There was no hiding what he'd been doing, no pretending he'd been focused on the work. The tool trembled slightly in his hand as he waited for her reaction, for anger, for disgust, for the professional distance that would surely follow. Instead, Vessa's lips curved into the softest, most genuine smile he'd ever seen. "In my culture," she said gently, her luminescent patterns shifting to a warm gold that seemed to pulse with amusement. "Admiring someone's form is considered the highest compliment. You humans are just so shy about it." Kai felt the blood drain from his face, then rush back twice as hot. "I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to. I was being completely unprofessional and Kai, her voice stopped his panicked rambling. She set down her own tools and turned to face him fully, her movements as graceful as ever. "Do you think I haven't noticed the way you look at me?" He stared at her, unable to form words. The golden patterns on her skin were growing brighter, more intricate, spreading across her arms and up her neck in beautiful spiraling designs. "I've been watching you too," she continued, her voice dropping to an intimate whisper. "The way you concentrate when you're working, how gentle you are with the specimens in your lab, the kindness in your eyes when you speak to the younger delegates. I've been waiting for you to notice me, really notice me, for weeks now." The observation deck suddenly felt much smaller, the space between them charged with an electricity that had nothing to do with the station's power systems. Kai could hear his own heartbeat in the silence, could feel the warmth radiating from Vessa's skin despite the cool air of the environmental systems. "I didn't want to presume," he said finally, his voice rough with emotion. "Our species, the protocols, I thought." "The heart recognizes what it recognizes," Vessa interrupted, stepping closer. "Luminari believe that attraction transcends physical form. We're drawn to the light in others, their essence, their spirit. And you, Kai Nakamura, have a very bright light." She reached out slowly, giving him time to pull away if he wanted to. When he didn't move, her fingers brushed against his hand, and he felt a small shock of sensation. Not unpleasant, but electric, alive. "Your skin is so warm," she murmured, wonder in her voice. "And your pulse, I can feel it racing. Is that unusual?" he managed to ask. Her smile widened, and the patterns on her skin shifted to deep amber like sunset over water. "It means you're attracted to me. In my species, elevated heart rate, increased body temperature, dilated pupils, they're all signs of genuine interest. Very honest signs." Kai laughed despite his nervousness. "So I'm basically an open book to you." "A very interesting book," she said, her thumb tracing gentle circles on the back of his hand. "One I'd very much like to read more of." The stars wheeled, slowly beyond the viewport, but neither of them noticed. The universe had contracted to just this moment, this touch, this connection that transcended species and convention. "What happens now?" Kai asked. Vessa's patterns shifted again, this time to a soft rose gold that seemed to pulse with her heartbeat. "Now we finish our work," she said practically. "And then perhaps you'd like to learn more about Luminari customs, starting with how we court those who catch our interest." Kai's breath caught. "I'd like that very much." As they returned to their repairs, the atmosphere between them had fundamentally changed. Every accidental brush of fingers, every shared glance, every moment of proximity crackled with new possibility. The maintenance work that should have taken an hour stretched into 2, then 3, as they found excuses to stay close, to continue. their quiet conversation, to exist in this new space they'd created between them. The universe had indeed become much smaller, and infinitely more beautiful. 2 days after their moment in the observation deck, Vesa appeared at Kai's quarters during the evening cycle. She'd changed from her standard-issue work uniform into something that flowed like liquid silver, the fabric seeming to complement the natural luminescence of her skin. "I promised to teach you about Luminari customs," she said when he opened the door, her patterns glowing soft blue with what he was learning to recognize as anticipation. "Are you free for a cultural exchange session?" Kai's quarters were modest but comfortable, with a small seating area that looked out onto one of the station's garden modules. He dimmed the lights and set out 2 cups of tea, 1 human blend for himself, and a crystalline beverage he'd replicated specifically for Luminari physiology. "You researched our dietary preferences," Vesa observed, settling gracefully onto the cushioned bench beside him. "Most humans don't bother. Most humans aren't trying to understand someone as fascinating as you," Kai replied, then immediately worried he'd been too forward. But Vesa's patterns brightened to warm gold, and she leaned closer. "In Luminari culture, directness is appreciated. We don't believe in hiding our feelings. Our skin makes that rather impossible anyway." She gestured to the shifting patterns across her arms. "These aren't just decorative. They're a window into our emotions, our thoughts, our intentions. Right now you can see that I'm pleased, intrigued, and—" She paused, the gold deepening to amber. "Attracted." Kai felt his own pulse quicken. "What would my skin be showing if I were Luminari?" "Elevated temperature in your cheeks, increased heart rate, dilated pupils," she said, reaching out to brush her fingers along his jaw. "You're displaying all the signs of deep interest. Your body is being very honest with me." Her touch was electric, warm, and somehow soothing at the same time. Kai found himself leaning into her caress, his eyes closing briefly at the sensation. "Tell me about Luminari courtship," he said, his voice rougher than intended. Vesa's smile was radiant. "We believe in harmony, not just physical but emotional and spiritual. When 2 Luminari are attracted, we engage in what you might call a resonance dance. We share thoughts, experiences, dreams. We learn to move together, to breathe together, to exist in synchrony." She shifted closer, her knee brushing against his. "With humans, it's more complex. Your emotions are hidden beneath layers of social convention and personal protection. We have to learn to read the subtle signs, to interpret the language of your bodies and hearts." "And what is my body telling you right now?" Kai asked, surprised by his own boldness. Vesa's patterns shifted to deep rose, and she placed her hand flat against his chest, just over his heart. "That you want me closer. That you're fighting the urge to touch me. That you're afraid of moving too fast, but equally afraid of not moving at all." Her perception was startling and intimate. Kai covered her hand with his own, marveling at the way her skin seemed to pulse with inner light beneath his palm. "In human culture, we call this reading someone like an open book," he said. "It should feel invasive, but somehow with you it feels like connection." "Because it is connection," Vesa murmured. "The barriers between us are dissolving. This is how bonds are formed." She leaned closer, close enough that he could feel the warmth radiating from her skin, could smell that unique scent of ozone and jasmine that was distinctly hers. "May I show you something?" At his nod, she placed both hands on either side of his face, her luminescent patterns beginning to pulse in a slow, hypnotic rhythm. "Close your eyes and try to match your breathing to mine." Kai obeyed, feeling the gentle rise and fall of her breath against his lips. Gradually, their respirations synchronized, and he felt a strange sense of calm wash over him. The boundaries between where he ended and she began seemed to blur. "This is the beginning of resonance," Vesa whispered. "Can you feel it?" He could. There was a warmth spreading through his chest, a sense of connection that went beyond the physical. When he opened his eyes, her patterns had shifted to match his own breathing, pulsing in perfect synchrony with his heartbeat. "It's incredible," he breathed. It's just the beginning, she said, her lips curving in a smile that made his heart race. Luminari courtship involves learning to move as one, to anticipate each other's needs, to create harmony in all things. She rose from the bench, extending her hand to him. Dance with me. There was no music, but as Kai took her hand and allowed her to pull him up, he realized they didn't need any. The gentle hum of the station's systems, the distant whisper of recycled air, the rhythm of their synchronized breathing, it all combined into a symphony that was theirs alone. Vessa's movements were fluid, hypnotic, and as Kai tried to follow her lead, he found himself moving with a grace he'd never possessed before. Her patterns grew brighter, more complex, painting intricate designs across her skin as they swayed together in the soft light of his quarters. "You're a natural," she murmured, her body pressed close to his. Most humans struggle with the concept of harmony, but you understand it instinctively. Their faces were inches apart now, her luminescent skin casting delicate shadows across his features. Kai could feel the heat of her breath on his lips, could see the way her patterns had shifted to deep amber and rose, colors he was beginning to associate with her strongest emotions. "Vessa," he whispered, her name a prayer on his lips. "Yes," she breathed, and he wasn't sure if she was answering a question he'd asked or one he was about to ask. The space between them disappeared, and their first kiss was like coming home to a place he'd never been, but had always been searching for. The observation lounge was nearly empty during the late night cycle, its massive curved viewport offering an unobstructed view of the galaxy, sprawling endlessly beyond the station. Soft, bioluminescent panels provided just enough light to navigate, while leaving the stars to dominate the scene in all their magnificent glory. Kai and Vessa floated in the zero-gravity section of the lounge, their bodies drifting slowly in the gentle artificial current that prevented complete stillness. They'd shed their shoes and outer jackets, allowing themselves to move freely in the weightless environment. "I've never experienced zero-G quite like this," Kai admitted, reaching out to steady himself against Vessa's shoulder as they rotated, slowly together. "It's different when you're not focused on work. Everything is different when shared with someone you care about," Vessa replied, her skin pattern swirling in shades of deep blue and silver that seemed to mirror the star field beyond the viewport. "Look there. Do you see that constellation?" She pointed toward a cluster of brilliant blue-white stars that formed an intricate geometric pattern. Her body pressed against his back as she guided his gaze, and Kai felt his breath catch at the contact. In Luminari mythology, those stars represent the first lovers who learn to achieve perfect resonance, she continued, her voice soft against his ear. They became so synchronized that they ascended to become celestial bodies, destined to dance together for eternity. Kai turned in her arms, marveling at how graceful the movement felt in weightlessness. Their faces were close enough that he could see every subtle shift in her luminescent patterns, the way they pulsed faster when his gaze lingered on her lips. "Is that what you want?" he asked quietly. "Perfect resonance?" Vessa's patterns shifted to warm gold, and she cupped his face in her hands. "I want whatever we can create together, perfect or imperfect, as long as it's real." Their kiss was different this time, deeper, more urgent. In zero gravity, they spun slowly as they embraced, their bodies finding new ways to connect, to align, to move as one. Kai's hands found the small of her back, pulling her closer, while Vessa's fingers tangled in his hair. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard, their hearts racing in matching rhythms. "I've been thinking about this moment for days," Kai confessed, his forehead resting against hers. "About you, about us, about what this means." "And what does it mean to you?" Vessa asked, her patterns now a complex tapestry of amber and rose. "It means I'm falling in love with you," he said simply. "Completely, terrifyingly, wonderfully in love with you." Vessa's luminescence flared brightly, her entire body glowing with an intensity that made her look like a living constellation. In Luminari culture, we have a saying, "The heart's light cannot be hidden." Your feelings are written in every look, every touch, every word. She pulled him closer, their bodies aligning perfectly in the weightless environment. I love you, too, Kai. Not just your form, not just your mind, but your essence, the beautiful light that makes you who you are. They drifted together in the starlight, hands exploring, lips meeting, bodies learning the intimate dance of love that transcended species and gravity alike. Vessa's skin grew warmer under his touch, her patterns becoming more intricate, more vibrant, painting stories of desire and connection across her body. Is this what resonance feels like? Kai whispered against her neck, his lips tracing the luminescent patterns that spiraled across her throat. This is beyond resonance, Vessa breathed, her body arching into his touch. This is harmony, complete and perfect harmony. Their lovemaking was unlike anything Kai had ever experienced. In zero gravity, every movement was fluid, graceful, transcendent. They moved together like dancers, like the orbital mechanics of celestial bodies, finding rhythms that seemed to echo the very heartbeat of the universe itself. Vessa's luminescence grew brighter with each caress, each kiss, until she was radiant as a star herself. Her patterns swirled and danced across her skin, telling wordless stories of pleasure and love that made Kai feel as though he was witnessing something sacred, something profound. You're so beautiful, he murmured, his hands mapping the geography of light across her body. So incredibly beautiful. You make me beautiful, she replied, her voice thick with emotion. You make me shine brighter than I ever have before. They lost themselves in each other, in the weightless dance of love, in the perfect synchronization of breath and heartbeat and movement. Time seemed irrelevant, gravity inconsequential. There was only the two of them and the vast cosmos bearing witness to their union. Later, as they drifted together in the afterglow, wrapped in each other's arms while the stars wheeled slowly beyond the viewport, Vessa traced gentle patterns on Kai's chest with her fingertip. What happens now? He asked, echoing the question from their first moment of connection days earlier. Now we face the universe together, she said simply. Whatever challenges come, whatever protocols we need to navigate, whatever future awaits us, we face it as one. Kai pressed a kiss to the top of her head, breathing in her unique scent, feeling the gentle pulse of her luminescent patterns against his skin. I love you, Vessa, more than I thought it was possible to love anyone. And I love you, my brilliant human, she replied, her pattern settling into the soft, steady glow that he was learning meant contentment, peace, home. Welcome to forever. Outside the viewport, the constellation of the eternal lovers continued, their cosmic dance as they had for millennia, as they would for millennia to come. And in the gentle artificial gravity of the observation lounge, two new lovers began their own eternal dance, bound by something stronger than gravity, brighter than starlight and more enduring than time itself. Morning cycle brought soft artificial sunlight streaming through the viewport of Kai's quarters, where he and Vessa had spent their first night together as a couple. She lay curled against his side, her luminescent patterns dim and peaceful in sleep, creating soft silver traceries across her skin like delicate jewelry. Kai watched her breathe, marveling at the fact that this extraordinary being had chosen to love him. The xenobiologist in him was fascinated by the subtle differences in her physiology, the way her patterns pulsed gently with her heartbeat, how her skin maintained a constant warmth that felt like holding sunlight. But beyond the scientific, curiosity was something much deeper, a profound sense of rightness, of completion, of home. Vessa stirred, her patterns brightening to soft gold as consciousness returned. Her large eyes opened, immediately seeking his face, and her smile was radiant. Good morning, my love, she murmured, her voice still husky with sleep. Good morning, beautiful, Kai replied, brushing a strand of her hair back from her face. How did you sleep? Better than I have in years, she said, stretching languidly against him. Luminari sleep deeper when we're in harmony with someone. My body knew it was safe with you. They lay in comfortable silence for a few minutes, simply enjoying the intimacy of the moment. But reality began to intrude as the station's morning routine started up around them. The gentle chime of shift changes, the soft hum of increased activity in the corridors outside. "We should probably discuss the practicalities," Kai said reluctantly. "Station protocols, our work relationship, what this means for our professional duties." Vessa's patterns shifted to a more serious blue-silver. "The diplomatic corps has policies about interspecies relationships, but they're not prohibitive. As long as we maintain our professional standards and don't let our personal connection interfere with our duties, there shouldn't be any issues. And our colleagues? Some will be curious, others supportive, a few might be judgmental," she said pragmatically. "But love is love, Kai. If we're confident in what we have, others will learn to accept it." A soft chime from Kai's communication panel interrupted their conversation. He reached over to activate it, and the voice of Commander Torres, the station's human administrator, filled the room. "Dr. Nakamura, Engineer Vessa, please report to Conference Room Alpha at Aero 900 for a briefing on the new habitat expansion project. We have delegates from 3 new species arriving next week, and we'll need your combined expertise to ensure their environmental needs are met." They looked at each other and burst into quiet laughter. "Well, that answers the question about working together," Vessa said, her patterns brightening with amusement. As they prepared for the day, moving around each other with an easy intimacy that felt both new and ancient, Kai found himself thinking about the future. For the first time in his career, he wasn't focused solely on his research, his next assignment, his professional goals. Instead, he was imagining a life that included this extraordinary woman, planning for a future that took into account 2 hearts instead of 1. "Vessa," he said as they gathered their equipment for the day's work. "What are Luminari customs around long-term partnerships?" Her patterns shifted to deep amber and she set down her tools to give him her full attention. "Are you asking what I think you're asking?" "I'm asking about forever," he said simply. "I'm asking if you want to build a life with me wherever that might lead." Vessa's luminescence flared brilliantly, her entire body glowing with joy. "Luminari mate for life, Kai. When we find our resonance partner, we don't let them go. Yes, I want forever with you. I want to explore the galaxy together, to work side by side, to face whatever challenges the universe throws at us as a team." She stepped into his arms and he held her close, feeling her heartbeat synchronize with his own. "There will be complications," she continued, her voice muffled against his chest. "Different lifespans, different cultural expectations, the challenges of interspecies relationships. But I believe love is stronger than any obstacle." "So do I," Kai said, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "Besides, we're explorers, scientists. If anyone can figure out how to make this work, it's us." They arrived at the conference room to find Commander Torres and several other department heads already assembled. A few eyebrows raised at their synchronized entrance, but the looks were more curious than judgmental. "Dr. Nakamura, Engineer Vessa," Torres said with a slight smile, "I trust you're both prepared for the challenges ahead. The new species have some very specific environmental requirements that will require close collaboration." "We work very well together, Commander," Vessa replied, her patterns glowing with quiet confidence. "You can count on us." As the briefing progressed, Kai and Vessa fell into their professional rhythm, their expertise complementing each other perfectly. But now there was an added dimension to their collaboration. Subtle touches, shared glances, the kind of wordless communication that comes from deep understanding and connection. During a break in the presentations, Commander Torres approached them privately. "I hope you know that personal relationships between crew members aren't discouraged, as long as they don't interfere with duty," she said quietly. "The station functions best when people are happy, and you two seem very happy." "Thank you, Commander," Kai said. "We intend to maintain the highest professional standards." "I'm sure you will," Torres replied with a knowing smile. "Just remember that love in space is something precious. Don't take it for granted." As the day progressed, Kai and Vessa threw themselves into their work with renewed energy. They had a future to plan, a life to build, and a universe full of wonders to explore together. The challenges ahead seemed less daunting when faced as a team, and the successes would be twice as sweet when shared. That evening, as they stood together in the observation deck where their journey had begun, watching the stars wheel slowly past the viewport, Vesa took Kai's hand in hers. "Ready for forever?" she asked, her patterns glowing soft and steady with contentment. "With you, I'm ready for anything," Kai replied, lifting their joined hands to his lips and pressing a gentle kiss to her luminescent skin. Outside, the cosmos stretched endlessly in all directions, full of mystery and possibility. And somewhere among those countless stars, two hearts beat as one, beginning the greatest adventure of all.